people who come out of that experience tend to go into some dangerous places. They tend to go into dance and substance abuse, risky sexual behaviors. They lie. What happens with us is that we look to our spiritual leaders to provide comfort. And there's very few places, frankly, in Detroit where you can go. I know prominent spiritual leaders here that have gay bash on a regular basis. I know them by name. I don't attend those institutions. I can't tell a person where they can or can't go, but that's a place where gays and lesbians are outwardly bashed. And it's unfortunate. Many gay and lesbian institutions or Christian institutions, and I say that because most of the people who we know are Christians who are gay and lesbian, have very little places of worship. So we're in a constant search of leadership that can provide spiritual nourishment. One of the reasons why I always say that I'm a proud Detroiter, because I know that there are very, very, very wonderful people here, wonderful Christian, Muslim, and other faith persons here in leadership. We just can't find you. I'm going to use that. But I'm not joking. We can't find you. We get the extremists. We get the loudmouths. We get those that have the churches that are probably most recognizable on a major highway, who have a pretty huge megaphone and can do some damaging things to people like us. You know, when we talk about symbols of hate, I was going in my presentation to talk about our symbols of hate, our words. It's words like fag, dyke, sissy, bulldagger. Those are painful words. It gets magnified when a spiritual person in leadership uses those words. So I just want to share with you, yes, it comes across our community often. People in my community are always looking for leadership in that. So I'm open and I'm willing to listen. If you have solutions or institutions that are welcoming to all people, I'm eager to hear and to tell people that I run into, this is a safe place where you can worship. This is a safe place where you can go and find God, Allah, however you call your higher power. There's a place here. I need that help. We don't know that.
Speaking of those symbols of hate, this is a question for Dr. Pilgrim. Please explain your wanting to purchase KKK robes. Isn't that just reliving the hurt?
First of all, I didn't actually purchase the robe. The Livingston County Diversity Committee saw a guy stick a Klan robe in his window. They wanted to purchase it and then burn it. We heard about that. We called them on the phone and said, well, listen, the other side burns stuff. We don't burn stuff. So if you're going to buy it, just donate it to the museum. They in turn asked me to come down to Howell and on their behalf purchase it for them. And so, and I don't want to get into all of that about that, but for our purposes, you cannot talk about racism in the United States without talking about organized ideological white supremacy groups. You just can't do it. The reality is that even though our museum focuses on everyday objects, groups like the KKK and others represent a significant part of that thought pattern. So I recognize that when you put a Klan robe in a museum, we're actually having this debate now, when we move into the new facility, and by the way, no gifts are too large for those of you out there. But when we move into the new facility, I have specifically said that of the 7 robes, whatever that we own, I only want to put, say, 1 robe on display. And the reason for that is that if you highlight the Klan, you let everybody else get off easy. Because the museum sends the message that racism so permeated our culture that it was a part of everyday life, not just groups like the Klan. So we will never highlight them, but we would be doing a disservice, we would be intellectually dishonest to not have it. Now, there's a question under your question, which is, I sometimes have people say to me, if I personally would not buy racist objects, the market would go away. Again, that doesn't make stupid sense. The Ghettopoly, for example, I don't know if you remember the game Ghettopoly. There's 600,000-700,000 of those made, but by the time Hasbro got a cease and desist order, I bought 2. And I can guarantee you the other 700,000 people weren't using them to educate people about the dangers of racism. So I'm not the market. I wish I were the market. I wish I had that kind of power. But I'm not the market. The reality is that every time a racial thing happens, or a sexual thing, or something with a homophobic bent happens nationally, within 2 days, mark my word, within 2 days, there are real 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional objects that are on the market. That's just a fact.
I got a question here, I think that is for me. It's apparently about the news media. How is it that politicians are making inflammatory statements that are hateful and racist and they are not called on it by the news media? There's a fuzzy world out there right now where we have a lot of people who've decided that journalism can only survive if it has a point of view, an opinion. We see this a lot on the cable news networks. I'm not one of the people who believes that. I think for journalism to work really well, we have to work like a mirror. When you look in a mirror, it's not the mirror that tells you, hey, you need a haircut. You look in the mirror and you see what is and you decide you need a haircut. I hope that that's the way good journalism can continue to work in this world. We just simply need to show you what is. It's not up to us to call anyone on it. I will say, however, with regards to Pastor Jones, we had decided at Channel 4 we were going to give him very little coverage 2 weeks ago when we found out that he was coming. It was only, well, it's simply because our way of thinking, the man really has not much of a constituency. I don't know who he really represents. This church that he's from in Florida is really not much of a church, just a handful of people. So I don't really know why he's necessary. He's allowed to say whatever he wants to say. He's not necessarily entitled to a broadcast microphone. But when the city of Dearborn made its decisions about his appearance, then it suddenly became different. It became about freedom of speech, and that is something that really we did feel that we had to cover. We did not really care as much about carrying the content of his comments yesterday. So just 2 things that I wanted to mention about that. The last question here, and I'll let anybody here who wants to weigh in on it. I think this is a really, where did I put my card now that I put it here? I think this goes very much to the heart of what we're doing here today. I just set it aside because it was the most, we have a lot of hatred going on in our country, and I want to help in fighting back. How can I get involved as a young man or student? What can you do? Go ahead. Pastor Meadows, you first, yes.
Yeah, I think, and I really wanted to come back to that question. I think first is that it's important that we educate ourselves as to what the issues are, and that we be clear on what racism, stereotype, prejudice, words like that, what they really mean. Secondly, I think it's important for all of us, but I think especially for whites, to put themselves in uncomfortable situations. Secondly, I think it's important to deal with, well, let me put it this way, get involved in anti-racist struggles, and not just anti-racist, but I would add anti-homophobic struggles and class, etc. Because the longer we let only that one voice hang out there and it's never challenged, people tend to think that's the right way to go. I'm a psychotherapist by training as well, and I think the dialogue is important, but let me take it to another level. It's a painful dialogue. It's a painful discussion, and it's important that people people examine their own prejudices, their own stereotypes, because in that sense we all have them. Racism is another animal, and only white people can be racist. And that has to do with power and having the ability to implement prejudices and stereotypes. Others may be more obnoxious, but racism requires power and institution to be able to implement it. And lastly, I want to say on that, there are other factors. I think we got to revise history. We got to challenge history because it's distorted in terms of how it's taught in school, in most of our schools. But the other thing is we have to challenge it, I think, in terms of boycotts, demonstrations, as well as writing editorials and lending clarity to what's out here right now. Those will be some of my suggestions. The other thing I do want to say for the youth, one of the things we did in Winston-Salem, we organized college students who can vote. And now we have some young college students, one just graduated last year on the city council. And these are progressive young people who are really making a difference, as well as some of the others. We're working on the school board now. But I think using voting power and demonstrating and boycotting, we're doing that around the resegregation of the schools. And the NAACP is playing a major role in that struggle in Winston-Salem right now. But we cannot afford to let this racism and these attacks coming down from corporate America and banks and Tea Parties and Republican politicians, we cannot afford to let them have their way. Part of the dialectic has always been resistance, resistance, resistance.
We'll just close here by, I'll share with you, though, the one lesson that I learned in the race conversations that Emory King and I hosted here a couple of years ago. The one thing that I learned is that if we're going to engage each other to speak about race, we got to give each other the amnesty to say stupid things. Because, especially if you want to engage white people to talk about race in America, a lot of white people feel that they don't really have to talk about race, and it's dangerous to do so. Right. And when you look around at the examples of some white people who have tried, Al Campanis, who went on Nightline and talked about how you don't see a lot of black swimmers because they don't have the buoyancy, and his career was left the next day lying in a heap on his doorstep. Jimmy the Greek, same thing. We see lots of white people who have waded into the conversation and gotten their hand, well, not just slapped, maybe completely cut off. And so the lesson in all of that for a lot of white people was, I'm not going to engage. Well, if this conversation only goes forward if white people are brought into the conversation. Otherwise, it's just a one-sided conversation, which is more of a monologue, and that doesn't get anybody anywhere. So we got to give each other the leeway to say the stupid thing, because that's the only way that I believe we can educate each other. Thank you all very much for being a part of this. Reverend Anthony, if I'll bring you back up. And Donnell as well.
Let's give Devin Skellin a big hand for his thank you, Devin. Did an outstanding job. Let me just say this. I want to acknowledge, let's give our panelists a big hand for their message, for their information. And I want the panelists to know that you owe me something. You owe me that summary that I've asked for, because we want to put that together in terms of what happened here. We got a question about what do we do as a result of this information, and the move for change, and to help heal our community, and how do we learn together as a people. That information is very important, because we do intend to put a document together so that we can make it available for the community and for other folk, and possibly through Congressman Conyers, I'm sure through various hearings, there'll be an opportunity for us to present the kind of dialogue that we've had here in Detroit on this very key issue, because it's very, very important Thank you. Have a good evening.